Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another episode of the Linda Ogweno Political Show. In this show, we train political aspirants about politics and political processes in Kenya, hoping that you'll be able to bring better governance. This show is guided by biblical principles. We remain appreciative towards Women United for Our Future for their support towards the production of this particular show. Today, we want to look at women and their role in politics. So, we'll take a deep dive into some of the things that have been done before that has brought women to where they are today. But of course, there's room for more improvement. And so, if we start with that, we're going to look at how Kenya has been part of some of the treaties that were signed before. And we're grateful to the women who have gone before us for the role that they have done. And we stand on their shoulders today, hoping that in our generation and the aspirants who are women, we will be able to take this particular uh, conversation to another level and make it for the generation before us. So, as I've said, Kenya has been part and parcel of international and regional treaties that it has signed. And so, if I'm to mention maybe one or two, for example, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, that is commonly known as uh, KEDAW. Again, you have the African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights that usually is known as the Maputo Protocol, and of course the Beijing Platform for Action that was signed in the year 1995. All these are just platforms that just give women rights to participate in different political arenas, and apart from just being able to participate, rights to different things, for example, rights to education, rights to own land, things that will just make women holistic and be able to participate in better ways. So then, when we also come to Kenya as a country, you find that in the year 2010, Kenya had passed a new constitution. And when it was passing the new constitution, then it's also considered, the role of women. And women are considered as a special interest group just because they are few in number as far as political representation is concerned, but they're not few in number as far as their numbers is concerned. So the constitution was also very intentional about this, and you find that in articles from 27 all the way to 56 they have just talked about rights of women to participate in politics and just all the rights that they get to enjoy. And then you find that again in constitution 2010, because apart from these treaties being signed, there was still a gap and there was still more that needed to be done. So in the constitution 2010 it became a bit more intentional, and one of the things that was introduced was the two-thirds gender rule. And the two-thirds gender rule stipulates that for every, that not more than two-thirds of the same gender in elective position and appointive positions is supposed to be happening in Kenya. And in addition to that, it created women representative seats. You find that Kenya has 47 counties. And so, in all the 47 counties, there is a position for women representative that is specifically uh, dedicated towards women, and this is supposed to increase the number of women in parliament. In addition to that, in Article 98, it requires the nomination of 16 women to the Senate by political parties in accordance with their proportion representation. Again, Article 97 requires the nomination of 12 members by parliamentary political parties. And in this 12, they're supposed to represent youth, they're supposed to represent people living with disability. But usually you find that if there's a he, there's also a she. But it also gives more room for more women to be able to come into parliament. The same applies if you look at Article 197. It also provides that not more than two-thirds of same members of any county assembly or county executive shall be of the same gender. But you find that there is a gap in this. You find that even if right now, if you look across the counties and you look at the representation of women vis-a-vis that of men, adherence to this law, there's still a gap, and that also plays to the some of the challenges that women get to face when they're in the political arena. And so we want to look at culturally and historically what are these things that have been hindering women and that have been making women not participate fully as they should within the political arena. And first, you find there are cultural practices. Of course, because we come from we are Kenya is in Africa, and there are those cultural practices that we've always had. For example, the political arena is largely patriarchal, and people don't see women as leaders. Just it comes naturally like that. And of course, there are also some cultural practices that are hindering women from participating in politics. Still, you find that women in some areas are not allowed to own land, or there are those inheritance issues that are affecting women. You find that cultural practices sometimes also affect women. Let's talk about FGM. We talk about early marriages. Those are just practices that are hindering women who are leaders even from getting in the political arena in the very first place. You find that abuse happening in those spaces, also just harboring women. Some communities within Kenya, especially in the northeastern region, women are not even allowed to speak, and women are not allowed to come into the leadership space. And you find that clanism is still an issue, and they get to choose who becomes the leader of that particular region. And unfortunately, when they are choosing, mostly they choose men. And if you look at even data and the representation of women in those particular sides of the country, you find it is very low. Some counties, apart from the women rep, they have no other position being occupied by a woman who has been elected. And so women who are in those particular counties are women who have been nominated 100%. There is no woman who has been elected. And so you see, we still have a long way to go as far as that is concerned. You find that women still have to, you know, have they have their family responsibility. You have to take care of your home, you have to take care of, and you also want to run at the same time. Things like breastfeeding are things that it's very hard for you to delegate. And over and above that, there's just so much responsibility that a woman is supposed to juggle with, and this acts as a barrier to women joining the political arena. You find that there are financial barriers. Most women still are not financially stable, and as I've said, you find that some of the things that can help them with that when it comes to owning land and property, they still are a barrier in one way or the other. You find that political violence and harassment is also very thrive in Kenya. And sometimes this is very intentional to just scare away women candidates. Women don't like where there's violence. So you find that areas that political violence is very high, you'll find that probably there's not even a woman candidate in that area. And so this really plays a very big role. You find that the gatekeepers in political parties are also not very intentional about increasing women's political representation. And you find, back to the point where I was talking about violence, you find that political parties, yes, they have documents, they have drafted maybe policies and like things like sexual harassment, but their enactment becomes very very difficult. And you find that while they may say some things, they don't mean it. And if you look at like even the appointments that are happening, in as much as the constitution has been very clear that two-thirds, does not need to be more than another gender, you find that this is still happening. So it just means that there's just no political goodwill. So when you also come to political parties, and political parties are gatekeepers, so they have unfair nomination processes, and this is eliminating women. You find that there are places that they give direct tickets, and they're not doing it in favor of women. You find that they're doing it in favor of men, and this is really really discrimination discriminatory. Sorry about that. Again, you find that there's unfair media coverage. Sometimes you find that a woman is, because you're considered to be, you're supposed to be at home, then or you're supposed to be married. You find that women who are single, women who are divorced, or women who are separated for one reason or another, the society does not deem them as good leaders, and sometimes society faults them for being in that particular situation. And so these are some of the things that you find probably are highlighted in media, and those they put women in bad standing. You find that women also lack mentorship. There's a big gap here, especially for women who have gone ahead of us. Sometimes you find they're not going back and just holding the hand of the woman who's still behind. And for women who have retired and maybe are enjoying that space, uh, just coming back and just holding the ones who are upcoming, it's still a challenge. We have a problem with vote buying in politics, and of course, because now this involves money, again this affects women. Again, you look at things to do with low self-esteem and just internal bias. These are things that have been told to women. Politics is dirty. It is not a place for women, especially. And because this is guided by biblical principles, you're told, politics is dirty. And of course, as a Christian or somebody who abides by the biblical values, then this is not your space for you. But yet, this is our country, and yes, this is our space. Again, you find electoral malpractices, things like corruption, stolen votes, manipulated party primaries, as I had mentioned. These are things that are just holding women back. If I go to lack of policy support and enforcement, more or less it's just enforcement. Very few spaces are there lack of lack of these policies, even in political parties. ORPP mandates them to have it. It is just the enforcement that is a challenge. Again, so we want to look at some of the things that how what are the solution, how then do we get to counter this, because we can't just sit back and say, for because now these are some of the challenges that we face, then we rest our case like that. So if you're a woman and you'll be going into politics as an aspirant, so how then do you get to mitigate some of these risks that you may find yourself facing as a society and as a people? You want to do civic education, and civic education is holistic. It involves everybody, because we also need to have male champions in these things, like men talking to fellow men why it is important to have women being part and parcel of these leadership spaces. You as the woman, you also want to come out and vie. The more women vie, the more their chances of winning elections. If you look at data, like in the last elections that were held in Kenya, women vis-a-vis men, there are very few women vying even in the first place. So come out and vie. This is part and parcel of just fighting some of the stereotypes that have been there, and just letting know that they are good women leaders. And that speaks to the people who manage to win elections. And as women, go out there and do that which is going to open doors for other women. And as I said in the introduction, there are women who went ahead of us and did exemplary work. So if it's your turn at the leadership table, do over and beyond. Again, we want to talk about financial empowerment, and innovative fundraising. uh if you're going to vie as a woman, people will just not vote for you because you're a woman. So just go out of your way to prove your fact. So that means you have to be innovative in what you do. Think beyond. When you talk about financial empowerment, you need money. So what are you going to do right now when you still have time to be able to raise that money? Allow me to mention an organization like DTF is very strong on promoting women aspirants. And when you save something with them, at the end of the day, they're going to match it. And over and above that, they give training and other things. So those are places that you want to be. We want to talk about enforcing laws against political violence, and that is within political parties. And these are things that probably are being done very intentionally. So if you're a woman and you find yourself within a political party, speak up, and so that this can be enforced within that political party that you're in. You find there's very few women in the neck. In the neck, much as ORPP requires. So sometimes, if a political party has to oblige, they just have women because they have to fill in the numbers. You're not put there because you have something to offer. Whether they put you there for numbers or just something to offer, make sure that when you sit at the decision making table, you make room for other women who will be coming after you, so that you make it better in that political party. But vie for this next position, occupy positions you are allowed by the constitution, and let nobody intimidate you in a political party that you're not able to do so. When you talk about finances, we also want to appeal to political parties to reduce their nomination fee. Some political party, their nomination fee is way too high, and majority of women are not able to afford it. So kindly look into that. But for women aspirants, it's not all political parties who charge. If you find yourself you're not able to afford, you look for alternatives. Sometimes alternatives are not as popular as the other one, but where there's a will, there is a way. We also want to look at mentorship and networking. As I mentioned, there's a gap here for women who have gone before us. Just come back and just hold hands and strengthen it. And if you are in a position where you can open a door for another woman, just do it. If you're in a place where there are barriers that are being held, make sure if it's a door you must break it. If you must open it, then open it in favor of other women who are coming behind. Again, we're talking about leveraging on media and digital platforms. Thank God we're in the digital arena, and like Linda Ogweno Political Show, we're just leveraging on that. And so, speaking to media houses, please, women show up for those media interviews. You find that sometimes, as a woman, you have been invited as an interviewee for those panel discussions. You don't show up, you give excuses. And if you ask people in the media, they'll tell you, compared to our male counterparts, women, we don't show up. So this is a challenge to us also. Let us show up. Let's avoid all these excuses that sometimes we give, that we are not showing up, yet we also complain for media for not giving us that. But if mainstream media is not also giving you, seek alternative routes. As I'd said, we're in the day and age of social media, so seek alternative routes and be out there. You also want to work on your work life balance support. definitely as a woman, there are roles, as I'd said, that you cannot delegate to somebody else. So how then are you going to mitigate that? If you're going to be in campaigns is very demanding. For example, you have to campaign at night, and yes, women, we have to campaign at night. So that means you have to create you have to look at that, and for the responsibilities that you have, maybe somebody taking care of your children, who can you delegate that to? And for the things that you'll not be able to do, then how then are you going to sort that so that you don't keep having these excuses? And then how do you, when you talk about work, we also have a life balance. You have to talk about our spouses. How do we bring them up to speed on what we're doing? How do we bring them to support us? How do we bring them to offer the financial support and even the spiritual support for those who have spouses, and even for your family? How do they get to plug in into your campaign so that they feel part and parcel of it? Again, we're going to talk at collective action among women voters. You find that women, we are many in number, yet we are not voting for each other. If you could just leverage on our strengths, one of our strengths is our numbers. We are so many, and even if you look at registered voters, there's so many women registered voters. If you could just leverage on that. Again, you find that when you come to mobilization of the ground, you women are usually the ones who are very good mobilizers. They know the doors, they knock the doors, they are in chamas, they know each other. In a particular community, you'll find women know a lot. They're in churches, women are usually just busy people. So they're very big mobilizers. And you find our male counterparts take advantage of this. But why are we as women not taking advantage of this so that we're able to make it better for each other? Let's leverage on that. We also want to talk about capacity building and training and confidence training. And one of the things that at Linda Ogweno we are doing is that we're capacity building you. So please take time to watch all the videos that we have put out there. And of course, like, subscribe so that you're able to also see the ones that are coming, and you're able to train yourself, build yourself in preparation for the next election. You have no reason to give an excuse that you lack political training. And where we are not able to cover, go out of your way also to see into it that you get that information, because you find that some of these things are very contextual and applicable to different environment. What may work in environment A may not necessarily work in environment B, but you have the time, go ahead and learn and make yourself better. Again, we're talking about legal and enforcement and quotas. I talked about the two-thirds gender rule and the fact that years down the line we have not managed to achieve it. And partly we are to blame as women, because I'd said we don't go out there to vie for these positions, we don't go out there to look for them, and partly it's our fault that it's not been achieved, and I've challenged you to that. But also there's a lot of political there's just no political goodwill. What do I mean by that? You find that during elections, politicians come together and promise women, we're going to do this if you elect me, we're going to do this, we'll give you half the cabinet, this number of appointments will be women. They make those pledges, and some even go ahead and sign it. And I'd want to recommend women, if you find yourself in that space, make sure that you have this signed. And so some of them go ahead and even sign it, but when now they have won election and it is their time, they don't honor it. So maybe one of the things we need to learn about is, when we are making these pledges and they're being signed, could there be a legal implication when it's not enforced, so that people just don't make promises and run away from it, so that when you have duty bearers make promise, they make promise and they're able to honor it. Again, we are talking about research and evidence-based advocacy. You find that there's very little data on women and politics, and just so that this can help decision makers to make it better. If you talk about, for example, violence, you find that when violence happens, very many women shy away from reporting it, just because of how it looks. And especially sometimes it happens within political parties, and sometimes it happens in just these corridors of politics. Let's say like nomination. For a woman to be nominated, the nomination rules in Kenya are not clear. They're not black and white. And because there's a lot of gray areas, you find that women are exploited, and sometimes they have to consent either sexually, or sometimes bad things just happen in those spaces. And so you find that for a woman to even report that is very difficult. And sometimes when a woman comes out and reports it, even for the ones who already are having a positions, and they're reporting that this is happening, they get victimized, they get vilified, they get objectified, which is not good. So let's continue advocating that there is research that is done, and this research, there's data, and data can now help decision makers. We are able to push on these particular platforms. Again, I had said we push for women supporting women, and it's very important because research has also shown that women get good leaders, make good leaders generally. But I want to say this as I close, that it is not enough that people vote for you just because you are a woman. There has to be something else that you're offering. We have had people also being women and did not make very good leaders, but generally data shows that with compared to men, women make good leaders. So if you are an aspirant, yes, you're a woman, but that is not the reason why people should vote for you. And if you have gotten an opportunity to serve and to lead, make sure that you're opening doors for other women. As aspirants, also, do not allow yourself to settle for less. Some of these, in these spaces, sometimes women are objectified on things that are not very common sense, and you're not able to see it very directly. Let me give an example. People are having a meeting, and you're told, you go and serve for us tea. It is it is African and natural for us to be serving. But you see, if you're on a decision making table and you're reduced to serving people tea, then those people are not seeing you as an equal. And you'll find at that time that you're going to be making tea is when decisions are being made on this particular important issue. So if you're in those spaces, just learn to make sure that those people know that no, you're on that decision making table as an equal player. Let everybody serve their tea, or if resources can allow, let somebody be hired to be able to make that tea and serve it to everybody else. But I was saying, as women, it is not enough that you're a woman, that is why people should vote for you. So go over and above. And of course, because already the tide is against us, you have to go the extra mile so that you're able to disapprove people. Back to the Bible and biblical principles, there's a woman called Jael who was not a soldier, and she was not a prophet or a queen, but she was just an ordinary woman living in her tent. Yet, when Sisera, the enemy, the commander, Phil, came into her camp, she saw an opportunity, and she had no sword, no army, no form of authority. What she had was a tent peg and a hammer, and with courage, she struck down Sisera, delivering Israel from oppression. What I learned from this particular story is that it doesn't matter the challenges that you have. Women who went before us probably had more challenges, and they managed to achieve the things that they managed to achieve. Even us today, we have challenges, and some of them I have outlined. But and even the ones who are coming will probably have challenges. So challenges will be part and parcel of it. But it is to use that which you have in your hand and go out there and win elections, and go out there and make it better for other people. If the children of Israel were delivered just by a woman using a tent peg, you can imagine just a tent peg. So ask yourself, what do you have in your hands? Yes, on your right you have a list of things that are not working for you, but on your left, could you also write another list of things that you have in your hand that are going to work for you? And when you get that opportunity as a political aspirant, and when you win that election, make sure that whatever you have in your hand, use it to your very best, and see into it that that oppression stops with you. You see, like the Israelites, Jael made sure that it ended with her. So make sure that some of the challenges that women are facing, it ends with you. If it is that policy that must be passed, if it is that law that has to be passed, make sure that the generations that are coming ahead of us do not have to face that particular challenge. I want to appreciate you for watching this particular show. I probably did not mention all the challenges that are affecting women. And so I want to hear from the comment section, how can we make it better for us women? And of course, for you of the other gender, our male counterparts, this story is not enough without you guys also hand holding us, so that together we are able to make Kenya a better country. Thank you once again, and look forward to the next episode of Blinda Ogweno Political Show. Bye bye.